Hey everyone, welcome to Gen X Mark the Spot Wednesday night newsroom with the Front Porch Conservative, Mr. Brian Trippett, right here with me. Tonight in the newsroom, we've got a lot to cover. I do want to apologize for having to move the Wednesday night newsroom to Thursday night. I have an elderly dog that I've had. He's 17 years old, and he has a variety of maladies, and he was just having a really bad day yesterday, so I had to bow out to do some tender loving care for him. He has asthma that he's developed in his ears and just was having a hard time. He was wheezing quite a bit because we got a lot of allergens here, and I had to give him a hot steam shower and give him some prednisone and he's having a much better day today. So I apologize for jipping out. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to my friend Brian to tell everybody about yourself and tell everybody where to find you.
Well, good evening, Ms. Tracy, and glad to be here as always. My name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. You can find me on Rumble at the Front Porch Conservative. That's the name of my channel. You can find me on YouTube at Talking on the Front Porch, which is going to be rebranded here in a few more days after the restrictions go by to finally get it to its final title of Chatting on the Porch. So, but in the meanwhile, you can find me there. You can find me on Twitter at the Front Porch C1. I do videos. I do live streams. I'm getting back in the video making business, and that's kind of fun.
I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying your videos.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And having gone through the first round of making videos and learned all the things not to do, this batch that I'm cranking out now seems easier. The flow is better. And, we're starting to get views on them again, getting eyeballs on them, and that's a lot of fun. And I've got the first guest, no, not the first guest on my channel, but I got an old friend coming to the channel next Thursday night. The High Harlot, Mike Harlow, is going to stop by for a visit.
Nice.
And he and I finally get to catch up with each other to see we'll see what the harlot's been up to, or whose hearts he's been breaking and what rules he's been and breaking and all that good stuff. So yeah, and we're going to do Front Porch Brunch this Saturday morning. So yes, find me in all the places, sub to my channel, and we will all together grow Fedora Nation. So thank you very much, Tracy.
If you were one of my people that's not subscribed to Brian, go over find him on YouTube, find him on Rumble, find him on X or Twitter, and give him a follow or a subscribe. Thanks to everybody, Adam and Robert, that's in the chat. Don't feel free to chime in. We're always here and we're open to comments. I too am getting back into the video making business. I had one today that dropped today on the real Red Wedding. It was the event that George R.R. Martin kind of used to make his Red Wedding in the Game of Thrones, called the Black Dinner. It's very interesting. It happened in Scotland in the 1400s. I also have another Game of Thrones lore video dropping soon, and I am recutting and re-releasing a video that was actually struck 5 years ago. It was struck, and I was forced to take it down. I got a warning on my channel because of it, but now, because I'm a rebel, I'm going to re-edit it, repiece it, and re-release it. It was my video on Silk Road and 𝗓𝗄𝗋. I think maybe the political climate is different, and I can actually release that without getting struck down by YouTube's terms of service. So I'm going to be working on that. It's kind of weird how things change.
Yeah, I mean, I did a real brief video on the 𝗓𝗄𝗋 pardon the other night. And I'm not as familiar with it as you and other people are, but I mean, from everything I've heard, I'm starting to wonder if they tried to railroad him, not so much for what people were selling on his website, as much as it was cryptocurrency and the inability to track the transaction that the federal government was all bent out of shape about. But
that's exactly what it was. YouTube's excuse was that I showed pictures from the Wayback Machine of Silk Road, and it had drugs and stuff. So I'm going to blur that, get around that. But that's exactly what it was. He got 2 life sentences plus 40 years. And the main thing was they actually tried to pin deaths on him, but there was no proof of deaths. There are street level drug dealers and drug kingpins that don't get 2 life sentences plus 40 years. Ross Ulbricht was not a drug dealer. He provided a free market where you could sell what you wanted. He did block pornography because he was afraid that people would do the CP thing, and he wanted to keep children safe. A lot of people that are mad at Trump are coming from the angle of he just commuted the sentence of a drug dealer, just a common, ordinary drug dealer. I said, no, not at all. He never sold the drugs himself, but also he was not selling to high school students on the street or in a schoolyard. This was in the early days of cryptocurrency and the dark web. They were selling to very, very well-learned, well-heeled people that were aware of that world, and you had to get around. These were highly intelligent people that were buying this stuff. It wasn't children on the street. And I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead.
And I was going to say, the feds never charged him with possession or sale of narcotic. They charged him with a whole bunch of other stuff, but they never charged him with that. So, I mean, and his family even made the statement. He had a disclaimer on the website. You are not allowed to sell this product, this product, and this product. And one of them was drugs. Now, and people just ignored it. I mean, so what's the guy going to do? I mean, obviously, if he finds out after the fact, that's one thing. If he finds out beforehand, that's one thing. But what's the poor guy going to do? So, I mean, obviously, and again, you're more versed on this whole thing than I am. But from looking at it from the naked eye, this was never about what was being sold. It was about the currency that people were using and the untraceability of the transaction. That's what the feds were upset about.
Yes, exactly. The way things worked on the dark web, and I'm sure still do at that time, you have to have a special browser to even go there. It's called Tor. And it's supposed to be untraceable. I think now they can trace it, which is one thing that this case highlighted. But you can't just go to a website on the dark web. You have to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that gives you a link. He didn't just put silkroad.tor out there and have people go to it. You had to know somebody to get to it. So again, these were very sophisticated people that were visiting Silk Road. He wasn't dealing drugs to somebody on the street. It was an open marketplace like Craigslist. Now, have you ever seen the founders of Craigslist be prosecuted because somebody bought an escort off of Craigslist?
Absolutely not.
Same thing. And that's not dark web. That's just Craigslist.com.
Yep. So absolutely ridiculous.
They didn't like the fact that it was a completely secure, anonymous, untraceable, untaxable. That's what they didn't like.
Yep. Totally. And
he was paying his own income taxes. He was paying his own income taxes. He wasn't trying to circumvent it. It's just they didn't like the fact they couldn't process sales tax and stuff on the actual site.
Yeah. And the fact, and like you said, 2 life sentences and a 40 years on top of that. It's like, come on, guys. This isn't about sentencing a man, justly given the crime he committed. This is about you guys sending a message. It's obvious what you were doing here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm fully glad he got pardoned. I believe he had already served 11 years of that first 40-year sentence. So I'm glad he's free. And another thing, he's a tech bro. This government, unless they can control them, they don't like tech bros. That's pretty obvious. All right. Well, with that rant, Brian, I'll take it over to you for our next topic. What you got?
Well, I tell you what, Tracy and I were talking about this backstage, and I don't know how you guys feel, but there is so much stinking news going on right now. I mean, I was telling her I caught a snippet of Owen Schroyer's program, The War Room, on Alex Jones's network. And Owen's 35 years old. He's, young guy. He's plugged in everywhere. He's got sources, people he's talking to all the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got a dedicated staff there at InfoWars. And he said, I can't keep up with this stuff right now, which kind of actually made me feel good. I'm like, okay, I don't feel quite so bad here.
No,
I
you
mean,
and I have to get our news from wherever we can get it, but he can call up people in Washington in the Trump administration and ask them a question.
yeah.
And he can't keep up. 𝗟𝗂𝗀𝗵 can't keep up. So I
Yeah.
don't feel so bad.
It is absolutely seven kinds of ridiculous. But I want to focus, I guess, to start out tonight. As you may have heard this afternoon, there are a couple of news items related to Trump's cabinet. And I will go ahead and pop these over to Tracy. One of them is from Politico, and I'll give me 1 second here, Tracy. I'll shoot this over to you in private chat. This one from Politico has to do with the nomination of John Ratcliffe for director of the Central Intelligence Agency. And this afternoon, it's official. We now have cabinet member 2, maybe cabinet member number 3, depending on who's reporting. But John Ratcliffe is now the new director of the Central Intelligence Agency. So he's in. All he's got to do from here is get his people and his deputy. Yeah, it was a very decisive vote. 74-25.
74-25, which means somebody abstained.
Yeah, but still, more than 2/3. You had Democrats crossing the aisle on this one. I would be curious to see the who were the yays and nays on this one, although I didn't get a chance to look at it. But Ratcliffe is in. Okay,
that's good.
So as it stands right now, according to reporting, Rubio is in, which we know for sure. Ratcliffe is now in. The vote, and this goes to the second link I just sent. So I mean, take your time on, Tracy. I'll talk my way through that one. The third one that's about to be voted on is 𝗵𝘁𝗿𝗃. And there is good news on that front. The Senate today, on a vote of 51-49, voted to move his nomination to a vote, to close off the debate and move it forward. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Both Lisa Murkowski, Republican of Alaska, and Senator Susan Collins, Republican of Maine, have both come out publicly. As a matter of fact, they're on Twitter with this. They are going to vote no. It is also rumored right now that Mitch McConnell is a no vote on 𝗥𝗍𝗃, which means if the Democrats hold together on this, 𝗥𝗍𝗃's nomination in the Senate is a straight-up tie, which means Vance would have to come in and break the tie. So the vote is supposed to take place around 9 p.m. tomorrow night per Senate rules. They've got to wait a certain number of hours after closing off the debate. And then from there, they take the vote. So if you see J.D. Vance walking into the Senate chamber tomorrow night to take the chair, then you're going to know where the vote count stands. If on the other hand, you see the vote, you see John Thune pull the vote, then you'll know we got a problem. Go ahead.
The only other scenario besides a straight up party line tie with J.D. Vance breaking the tie, would be if Fetterman breaks ranks again. And I think, and he might actually come up with another vote and bring it to 51.
Yeah, and
I think he's already said he will be voting yes.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then go ahead.
But that could also be included in what they're expecting. I mean, since 2 Republicans are breaking ranks, they may have already figured in that he might break ranks too. So, which he has been doing. So,
yes, yeah. I mean, so far, if Trump is smart, and I have no doubt that he is, then I've got a feeling he's working on Fetterman. Just every so often call him up and go, John, where are you at on this one? Is there any way we can move the needle here? Now, in other nomination news, Tulsi Gabbard's nomination hearing is scheduled for next week. So get ready. And that one's coming up in the near future. But as it stands right now, some of the cabinet is coming into place. Which
is great. I know they had to wait for the new Senate, but I wish they had started some of these votes before Inauguration Day. It's just, I hope they don't try to slow roll it. And if they do, then we know we've got too many rhinos in the zoo. But if they can get it done within a month, maybe sooner, I think we'll be in good shape. they slow rolled his first cabinet. That was part of the problem.
Right.
They slow rolled it, and it took like 6 months to get them all sworn in. And
Well,
and even then, they basically forced him to pick some deep staters, for lack of a better term, to get some of them through. But not this time. He has nothing to lose this time.
Yeah, and there is a certain amount of slow rolling that's going on right now. As a matter of fact, it was announced the other day that Senator Adam Schiff has placed a 7-day hold on the vote on Attorney General nominee Pam Bondi. And no one quite understands the reason why, because hearings are over with, committees voted out the nomination. A lot of people get the feeling that this might have to do with the fact that Bondi and he crossed swords in the Judiciary Committee, and he didn't like how he looked by the time she was done with him.
Oh, I'm sure it's just a tactic, just being annoying, trying to slow it down, trying to agree. He got his pardon at the federal level, but she also knows people at the state level, and I think that fears him. She can pick up and call somebody in California. She can pick up the phone and call somebody anywhere that he did some diddlings and maybe get some. That's what we don't realize. All these pardons that Biden handed out, he's not pardoned at the state level. If Trump really wants to get them, all he has to do is call some people in red states, and he can make their life quite uncomfortable for a while.
Yeah, those pardons only cover federal crimes, or federal issues. They don't cover state questions. And, it's like Tracy said, if Trump wants to go after some of these people on the state level, it would take nothing to get that rolling. I mean, after all, it was done to him.
They're senators. They, especially the Biden family, they've done crimes, I'm sure, in all 50 states. It wouldn't be hard to get the ball rolling on them if he really wanted them to.
Yeah, and by way of update, 𝗙𝘂 Gabbard's hearing is scheduled for Thursday, January 30th. So
that'll be a barn burner that we want to listen to.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
After 𝗥𝗀𝗃, I think she's the most controversial. I don't think Cash is going to have as bad a hard a time as 𝗥𝗃, and I don't think RFK. I think RFK's pretty much got the votes that he needs. 𝗙𝘂, because of how they tried to label her, or did label her, is going to have, I think, the most uphill battle. But in the end, I think she'll get it.
Well, there's a tweet here from Michael Shellenberger, respected award-winning journalist, and I want to read this real quick. From Shellenberger's Twitter page, 𝗙𝘂 Gabbard is and I'm quoting him, 𝗙𝘂 Gabbard is a threat to national security, say senators close to the intelligence community. She is not. She's a threat to the most corrupt people in the intel community. We must defend Gabbard's nomination as though our freedoms depend on it, because it does. And, there are some very consequential heavy hitters in this group of cabinet nominees. I mean, every last one of them, to one degree or another, are very serious, very plugged in. If I may use an expression, they know where the bodies are buried, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So if they come in and they can get their deputies in with them, and they truly do go forward with trying to reform some of the institutions that they are charged with heading up, you could see some major, major changes take place, which actually you're already seeing it already. I mean, you've got Trump, on a side subject, he's changing out U.S. attorneys around the country as though he's changing T-shirts.
He revoked the security clearance of 51 FBI agents that said that Hunter Biden was Russian disinformation, the ones that reached out to Mark Zuckerberg and said you need to push this down.
Well, and some of those names among those 51 intelligence community members, we're talking some heavy hitters in Washington, D.C. James Clapper, John Brennan, Leon Panetta, who's been an institution around D.C. for decades. All of a sudden, their security clearances, they're gone.
And you know what? If you're in the intelligence community with no security clearance, you're moot. You can't do a dang thing. You might as well just retire or quit.
Yeah, because let's be honest about it. Whenever these guys are invited on a television show, what are they peddling? their access to information. But if they no longer have the access, what's the point of having these guys on? And it's like you said, if they can't sell their wares because they have no wares to sell, then they're going to go off quietly somewhere. They'll still doing it. Yeah.
He revoked the Secret Service protection for John Bolton. He's, I think, revoked some other security details for people that are not former presidents. I don't think what people realize, for the most part, it's only active sitting Congress people and active sitting executives and Supreme Court justices that get it all the time. Everything else is by discretion. And so, like, vice presidents do not, unless the vice presidents do not get it for life, and neither do Congress people get it for life. And certainly not bureaucrats. I don't understand why some of these bureaucrats had Secret Service protection, but he's revoking a lot of that too.
Well, and aside from John Bolton, it was just announced today, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has had his security detail revoked. So it's like, ooh, okay.
American people are not paying for that anymore. They're not paying for you to go around and peddle lies and wares and to be protected.
Exactly. So there's some serious rocking and rolling taking place. It's amazing to see it happen. It truly is.
And I have a message for all the MAGA people out there in Washington, particularly in Congress, whether you're a Republican, because there's also some MAGA Democrats we're starting to see. Play the Game of Thrones. Just play it. Come together and play it, because if you don't win the Game of Thrones, you're dead. Play the Game of Thrones. Turn the screws. Put the screws to people you need to. Call in the favors. Let's get this done.
Yeah, and it's Trump's got basically, really, he's got about 3 years.
He's got a year and a half before the midterm season kicks off.
Yeah,
he's got to put in a good showing and get some of these rhinos voted out and get some of these Democrats voted out.
Yeah, absolutely. Which
the rest of the squad needs to be gone. We got rid of 2 of them, but we need to get rid of the other 3.
Oh, I know. And the sad part about it is, unfortunately, I could see 𝗪𝗓𝗄 in Michigan, Democrat up there. I think she's in the 15th district. I could see her going before AOC. AOC is in one of those districts that,
went for Trump, actually, but still voted for her too. They split ticket.
Jesus could come back and run as a Republican in AOC's district, and I'm not sure Jesus would win.
Right.
So it's one of those districts, but it's like you said, there's ticket splitting that happens, and that is a phenomenon that's very true under the Trump era. People will split they'll vote for Trump, but they'll vote for a Democrat until they realize, oh crap, this Democrat is everything that Trump's talking about. They got to go.
Exactly. It's what happened in Nevada for a guy, for beating Sam Brown. It happened in Arizona with Ruben Gallego. Happened in AOC's district.
It happened in Michigan.
Right.
Slotkin won against Mike Rogers. And you had Wisconsin. Tammy Baldwin hung on to her seat against Eric Hove, and
barely.
Trump barely. Well, thank you, corrupt Milwaukee. Big old dump of votes came in at 4 a.m. that nobody saw coming.
Right. So, like I said, to particularly Laura Trump and the RNC, just play the Game of Thrones. Make sure they don't pull that crap. And from what I see, Scott Presler's hard at work in both Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
Yep.
He's going to make Pennsylvania a sure red state, and he's going to flip New Jersey. Those are his goals for the next election.
Well, and let me talk about Scott Presler for a second, because I saw him tweet out something today that was very interesting, and I don't have it pulled up, but I remember specifically. In Wisconsin, there's a Democrat state. There's a Supreme Court justice for the Wisconsin Supreme Court who's retiring, and a special election is being held on April the 1st. And right now, the court is 4-3 Democrat to Republican. So there's a chance to flip this court back, and the Republicans are doing nothing at this point.
Laura Trump, where are you?
Yeah, girl.
And I know it's the state party, but you've got some power over the state party. Get out there.
Well, and here's the thing: if you don't, And this goes to one of my frustrations when it comes to national Republicans. The big things are made up of the little things, okay? I have always said, and I still believe, the best thing that you can do to help yourself win a national election is make sure that you win state and local elections. Why? Because if a state Supreme Court decision comes down in an unfriendly way to your national candidate, there's not a whole lot you can do about it because it's a state issue. You've got a chance to turn the state Supreme Court in Wisconsin back to the Republicans. And I'm not saying that's necessarily the best thing judicially, but let's be honest. These are elected offices, which means they are political. If you're going to help yourself in the long run, the state Supreme Court races in Wisconsin this year, later on in this year, you'll have state Supreme Court races in Pennsylvania. Yeah, it's time to, Laura Trump and, the other part of the co-chair need to start getting into these races hot and heavy. So Pressler's sounding the alarm. So hopefully people are going to listen to him.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Well,
and with that, I will hand it back over to you.
On to better news. Just under 500 criminal illegal migrants arrested and now being held pending deportation. Woo-hoo! In 36 hours. That many people taken off the street.
Yep.
And when people start screaming about, they didn't show up to pick fruit. He's not going after those that are non-criminal right now. That will come. I'm not saying that it won't, but right now he is going after the ones that either have committed crimes since they've been here, were criminals in their own country before they came here, or have, in other words, broken the law other than coming across the border. The fact they came across the border illegally makes them a criminal. But he is, even because the sanctuary, none of these people needed sanctuary. They just came for economic. And I admire people that do that. But a lot of these people were sent here by their government to get them out of their country because they are bad actors. And those are the people they're taking off the streets now. The ones that killed Laken Riley. The ones that have assaulted other American citizens. These are the people that they're targeting right now. And almost 444, I believe, was the number that went down in 36 hours. And it's wonderful. And it's happening in sanctuary cities. That's where they're targeting people first.
Did you happen to see the clip in Boston today of the F Trump, F Joe Biden? I'm like,
I have it, and I'm going to play it.
Yeah, I was hoping you had that one.
That made me mad. And I hope people listen to what he's saying. I hope people really listen, because I guarantee you that's not a crisis actor.
Oh, yeah.
This is a Haitian man that was taken into custody in
It's going to work as fast as
Boston.
they can to get all the people you just saw on camera there out of the country as
I'm not going back to Haiti.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
So, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
For those of you out there that are still lefties and riding the cult of Biden and the cult of Obama, please take note of what he said. And he is a felon with 17 felonies. 17. Living it up on government benefits in the city of Boston. And they knew where he was. They had no problem finding this man.
Yep. Absolutely. And you're going to see more of this. I saw, who was it the other day? I think it was Tom Homan, the border czar, was being interviewed by someone, and they asked him, so how's it going down at the border? He's like, we're down to zero apprehensions. It's just absolutely just dried up.
Well, 15,000 United States Armed Services went down there. And they're putting up for lack of a better term, they're putting up the chicken wire.
Yep.
And they're standing there with guns. That's what they should have been doing.
And they are building fence as fast as they can. I saw a video the other night where they're building in the dead of night. I mean, they've got spotlights out there. It's just going up as quick as they can move it. Now I'm like, heck yeah, go boy, go.
And people are, I hear people, are they going to start killing people that try to? I said, if they have to, I'm sure they will. If you have somebody that literally tries to beat their way through the wall like they've been doing, I'm sure there will be shots fired because that's an act of war.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, and there will be other cities where this is happening. And this, I mean, for people who've been wanting to see this go down, give it a little bit of time. Let the boys from ICE, the Border Patrol, Customs and Immigration, let them get in there and let them work it. And we've got a chance to turn this thing around. It's not going to happen overnight. But God, I mean, I tell you what, when Trump's been in office now officially, since Monday, 12.
Monday
So we're talking
noon. Yeah.
So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So basically 3 days and about 3 days and what, 6-7 hours?
And the ICE operation did not start until Tuesday morning.
Yep. And it's incredible. I mean, we talked about in the previous segment, you cannot keep up with Trump. He's giving speeches in Davos. He's doing executive orders. He's doing press conferences. He's traveling to, we'll get into this in a little bit. He's traveling to different states starting tomorrow. It's like, my God.
Please keep him safe. And also, I do agree with what Lindsay said there. ICE does need to be super professional, super pointed with what they do. And they need to make sure that they understand their own camera at all time, because the media will not hesitate, like she said, to throw blood in the water.
Absolutely. But right now, the pace at which the Trump administration is moving is just incredible. It's like, my boss at work occasionally uses the expression, it's like trying to drink water out of a fire hydrant. That's exactly what's going on right now. I mean, Tracy's got, we've all got the best problem you could possibly have as content creators. There is so much stinking news going on right now. Every time you turn around, and you said it best before we went live, when you think you got your stuff lined up, there's about 4 or 5 stories that drop, and you're just like, well, this just became old news. It's like, it's crazy.
And I think it's wonderful. And 502 days, 3 days, not too bad. It's, it's over 100 a day. I mean, it needs to be more than that. It needs to be like 1,000 a day, but they'll get them. They'll get it up. They're just concentrating on the criminals right now. Yep. Then they'll start on just the illegals that are not necessarily criminals. They're just here illegally.
Well, but to couple that, did you see the clip where the FBI went into the immigration lawyer's office and
raided it? Yeah, in Minneapolis.
Is either Minneapolis or Boston. I forget which of the cities it was. But yeah, they raided the guy's office, and I'm like, ooh, okay. This just got interesting.
And charged him with sedition.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Which he was, I think, using a lot of non-kosher practices to get people here. Or to help people stay here. And also, we found out that the Vermont ICE agent that was shot, the national that shot him, was a legal immigrant that was here on he was an illegal immigrant. He was a German that had overstayed an H-1B1 work permit. So again, there's that heating up. And I love that Trump just said no more immigration until we get a handle for 90 days until we get a handle on it.
Yep. It's incredible. It really is. I am going to be fascinated to see the coming days and weeks, because the deep state, the administrative state, whatever you want to call it, is going to fight Trump tooth and nail at every turn. And Trump at this point is moving with such speed. It's just, I'm not saying he won't be slowed down a little bit, but the speed at which he's moving right now, the deep state's having a very hard time.
Yeah, they're going to have to retool to even keep up with him. And I agree with you 100%, Robert. Also, there was a school shooting here in Tennessee, in Antioch. It's about 30 miles from where I live now. It's a lower income area of Nashville. At Antioch High School, there was a school shooting in which 2 were killed, including the shooter. Have you heard anything on national news about it?
No.
You want to know why?
Why?
Confirmed today, and I'm going to do a video on this, but confirmed today by Nashville PD, the dude was a radicalized black supremacist.
Oh, my.
His manifesto was calling himself the last true Rwandan. He was all about ethnic cleansing. The young man that he shot was also African American, but definitely and then he shot himself. So he was definitely a black radical supremacist. And of course, you're not hearing anything on national news because why? It doesn't fit the narrative.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah. And by the way, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to horn in on your segment, but speaking of the news, did you see where CNN and NBC will probably sometime tomorrow, if not the beginning of next week, announce major layoffs at each network?
I saw that. Yeah. And I wonder how much on-air talent will be part of that.
That's the question I've got. That is the absolute question that I have. Is like, okay, you guys are kind of reaching the point where you really can't cut out too much fat in the middle, the lower level people, the staffers, what have you. If you're going to start getting into cost savings, you're going to have to like cut some on-air talent. So that's my question. And
then tell them if they've got that big of a following, go do a podcast.
Well, but see, that sort of gets
Chris Wallace already do that.
Well, Chris Wallace is trying to do it. I haven't checked in to see how successful he is, but see, this is going to be the problem. Even if some of these folks at these networks, and I know we're rabbit holing here, I apologize.
That's fine. There's too much. We have to rabbit hole. There's so much going on.
Even if these people were like let go at CNN or NBC or MSNBC, and they go out and try to start their own live stream podcast, whatever, which I mean, they might, and I'm not saying they wouldn't have the tools and the money to be able to make it successful, but I don't know how much they could grow it. I mean, because my theory is, and I could be wrong about this, the only people they would attract would be the people who would already be watching them on the network that they'd been let go from.
Right. Unless there's some of us who hate watching them, but that'll only get you so far.
Yeah, exactly. And at some point, if you can't grow it, you know, you're gonna die on the vine. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, yeah, you'll keep it going for a little while. You might find some sponsorships, but that's about it. Yeah. You know.
And I am putting Lindsay's comment up here for a reason. Going back to the Antioch shooting, the Antioch, Tennessee shooting. What's ironic is that he cited Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens as influences. I had read that, and I can tell you, Nick Fuentes is a evil gopher. He is a I think he cosplays as a white supremacist, but really I think he's a radical leftist. He's definitely a plant of some sort. I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat and say that he's a plant of some sort. Mm-hmm. And Candace Owens, I used to be a big fan of Candace Owens. But ever since she started in with the anti-Semitism, I have nothing good to say about Candace Owens. I also think she is some sort of, I'm not going to say plant, but she's definitely just a grifter and jumps on whatever is most controversial to make a buck. So it does not surprise. And she has some very radical views, that is anti-Semitism. Nick Fuentes is very anti-Semitic. They have some very anti-people views, and it does not surprise me that the shooter referenced them.
Yeah. Nick Fuentes is supposedly a conservative. Well, you know, not that I get to decide who is and isn't conservative, but I'll say this much. If I would be allowed to like punt him off the reservation, I would drop kick him clear as far away from the conservative movement as I possibly could.
He's not. He is a radical leftist. He's cosplaying as a conservative.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. I guarantee it. And yes, they're both grifters. Absolutely. And I really think he's a Fed.
Wouldn't surprise me. Would not surprise me. Of course, we could get Cash Patel in there and see who's on the payroll.
Yes, Cash needs to open up those payroll records. Which of these commentators, I don't care if I like them or not. I want to know if they're plants. I want to know if they're, you know, again, another rabbit hole. But, you know, going down to the Russian network that was paying Benny Johnson and Tim Pool.
Yeah.
Now, bear in mind, I think they were innocent in it in a way because they were just putting pre-produced, already established content that they had. Like for Tim Pool, he just had the one Culture War podcast, and that's what he was putting on their network and getting paid for it. I can't say that I wouldn't do that. And, up until just recently, BBC operated in America. A lot of state TV, CBC used to operate in America. A lot of them do. So I don't think that's so unusual. So you have to look at it, each individual case. But where I think the issue there was Lauren Chen, who was evidently the mastermind, her and her husband, of bringing that here. I haven't seen her active on her channels. Got deleted. I haven't seen her anywhere on social media. So they're the ones that knew what was going on and didn't tell Tim and Benny and everyone else that was caught up in there. And I think, again, I used to like Lauren Chen. I think she's a grifter and a controversial stirrer and probably a Russian plant.
Yeah, I would not be surprised by any of that. Not at all. Not at all. So, yeah, I again, and I don't know how you do this other than let them tell on themselves. But even in the conservative movement, there needs to be a house cleaning. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I understand conservatives are going to disagree with each other depending on what the issue is. I don't expect everybody to toe the line and have a hive mind mentality. But, there's an old expression from the good book, you shall know them by the fruits they produce.
I agree. Yeah. But I have a real problem with calling this a conservative movement. What we're doing right here, MAGA is not a conservative movement. It's more conservative than the status quo. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's a populist movement.
That's fair.
That's best for the real people in this country. It's not conservative. It's not liberal. It's just a populist movement. Some things are conservative. Some things are liberal.
Sure.
I still consider myself a classical liberal. I'm not a conservative. Yeah. I don't believe that, women's best place is in the home. I believe you should have the choice. I will say that I think that children do function better with a parent at home, and that's probably should be the woman. There's some things that I will concede that are more conservative, but I think a woman, as long as she qualifies at a male level, should be able to get any job that a male could have if she qualifies at the established male standards for the job. And I'm talking about things like fire, police, that sort of thing. So I have some very liberal views. I'm pro-life. I'm not pro-choice at all, unless it's rape or incest or something like that, or the danger of the life of the mother. But I think when you're the big tent party, you're going to have these kinds of problems. You're going to have the old school, very, very conservative old churchgoer that have a problem with me or other gay people that are in this movement, or outspoken, more feminists that's in this movement. And then you're going to have the people like Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens that give the entire movement a bad look that come in. And that's what we need to house clean. Yeah.
No, that's more what I'm talking about. It's like, I'm sorry, Fuentes just flat needs to go. Candace needs to be seriously examined, among other people. I'm not, people can check me out and say, he's full of crap. Okay, I like the guy. I mean, give me the same examination. That's fine. But some of these people need to be seriously evaluated. Anytime Milo Yiannopoulos starts getting into the news, I'm like, oh crap, here we go.
And that's another grifter.
Yep.
The only controversial personality out there that I think that's controversial to the level that they're controversial, that is absolutely believes in what he says, is Alex Jones. Yeah. I don't think he's a grifter at all. He uses what he does to make a living because he's a capitalist.
Yeah.
But he absolutely believes what he says. And I respect that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you know what? Alex, I saw some of his show today, and you talk about a guy that is wired for sound right now. He is, and again, I don't know.
Best time of his life right now.
Oh, he is. He is just watching him. And it's like, stuff that he's been working toward for decades is now starting to come to fruition. Mm-hmm. And it's still a long way to go in his book. And again, I'm not trying to speak for him or say I can plumb the depths of his mind, but to watch him on his show, it's like you said, he's having the time of his life.
Yeah. And Alex, if you were to see this somewhere on the ether, come on with us. Come on with us.
Or you know, we have no problem whatsoever coming on InfoWars. I'm just saying, Alex, if you want to invite two good-looking people to, you know, like you know, give some eye candy for your show, you know, just saying, we are available. We will do either a road trip, or we will happily come on by way of video, man. We will make this thing happen. We'll do it.
I would just love to interview the man. I would love to interview the man because I did a hour and a half deep dive on him, and he's done some things I don't agree with. He said some things I don't agree with. I want to give him a hardball interview and just see what he says. I really do.
Yeah. I will never forget this. And you may have heard the story. And if you have, forgive me in advance. I will never forget the story of how he got invited on Friday Night Tights. Gary Beekler's show that he co-hosts with Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers. Robert Barnes is a mutual friend to everybody, and I forget how it happened, but Robert Barnes said, "Oh, you want to get a hold of Alex? Here, Jeremy. Here's his phone number. Call him." Jeremy's like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, here's the phone number. Call Alex. See if he'll come on." Sure enough, Alex picked up the phone. He's like, "Yeah, I'd love to come on. I watch you guys all the time." And they had Alex Jones on. This is maybe like 2-3 years ago now. And yeah, for about a good 45 minutes to an hour, Alex was Alex, and they just sat around and talked about it, just about any old thing they want to get into.
I know, and I just want to talk to the man. I want to interview the man. I just want to talk to the man, not necessarily about controversy. I just want to try to get inside his head as much as I can. I mean, he's a Gen Xer like you and me.
Yep.
You know, I'm sure we probably have a lot of shit in common. I would really like to just sit and talk to the man. I really would, because I think with everything he's been through, he's just, to me, a fascinating individual.
Oh, I totally agree. And, you know, the old joke about, you know, what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth? Oh, about 4 months. In Alex's case, you know, when he says, "I'm giving you the news today that you'll hear about tomorrow," he's not kidding, because usually he'll put something out there and everybody's like, that's crazy. But Alex
even
Jones.
The gay frogs that Robert's referring to, that has come to be shown that it actually happens, that a lot of the chemicals that we're dumping into the water system is turning certain amphibians asexual and even causing them to become more feminine, literally changing their sex.
My God.
What he said was true. And also that clip was taken out of context. I went back and watched the entire plethora around it, and what he was doing, it was a rant, but it was more of a sarcastic, facetious rant. Talking about what he was talking. So people like to clip people they don't like and just put them out there.
No, absolutely. Well, I mean, for example, Elon Musk and the whole supposed Nazi salute.
The throwing my heart thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And because the part they clipped out was "from my heart to yours." And then he did the salute.
And he turned around and did it to the rest of the crowd.
Yep. And it's like, gee. You know, the press is getting desperate when they've got to resort to that.
It's going to be an interesting 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years. They're already getting offended. And I love Trump is just not pulling any punches. He's got the press there when he's signing executive orders and he's talking to them about what he's signing. It's beautiful. We haven't had that since Trump. Obama never did that. I don't remember Bill Clinton ever doing that.
Biden tried to do it and he'd mumble his way through it.
Right. And then we've got him actually sticking it to the press. You know, stop. No. You're cut off. You know, that kind of thing. I love it. I love the man is back. And I can't wait till his press secretary. I want to see her in action.
Oh, Caroline Levitt. Oh yeah. I've seen some things so far, but it's like, when she does her first presser, it's going to be a good one. It will be a good one.
I can't wait to see it.
No, absolutely.
Well, digging ourselves out of the rabbit hole, I'll turn the next topic back over to you.
Well, I'm going to shoot you a link in private chat. And speaking of immigration and other related items, it didn't take long for the Trump administration to run into its first challenge to some of its actions, because you know that's where the liberals and and the lefties are going to go, they're going to go to the courts, and they're going to try to go to courts that are friendly to their efforts. Now, as y'all may be aware, the other day, Trump signed a executive order banning birthright citizenship. Well, like I said, it did not take long for the following. And when I'll go ahead and read the headline while I was trying to pull up. Judge blocks Trump's quote, blatantly unconstitutional order to executive that aims to end birthright citizenship in an article by 𝗙𝗂 Sneed. Now, that's a name for a journalist. Oh, I'm 𝗙𝗂 Sneed. Anyway.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. 𝗙𝗂 Sneed, CNN.
Yeah, I'm 𝗙𝗂 Sneed from CNN. Let me curl my mustache. Yes, my brother is Snidely Whiplash. A federal judge said Thursday that President Donald Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship was, quote, blatantly unconstitutional, issued a temporary restraining order to block it. Judge John Kovner, a Reagan appointee who sits in Seattle, granted the request by Washington Attorney General Nick Brown and 3 other Democrat-led states for the emergency order halting implementation of the policy for the next 14 days while there are more briefings in the legal challenge. Quote, I've been on the bench for over 4 decades. I can't remember another case where the question presented was as clear. Where were the lawyers when the decision to sign this executive order was made, the judge asked. He said that it boggled his mind that a member of the bar would claim the order was constitutional. So, yeah, this one's going to want, I guarantee you, folks, I'm going to make my prediction right now. Mark it down. This one's going up to the Supreme Court. It might take a little while to get there, but it's going.
It all hinges on the 14th Amendment. Every bit of it, which was originally enacted to protect former slaves and to make sure they were treated as citizens. So the fact that it has been, in my opinion, twisted to say that anybody that walks into this country, they can come in legally or illegally. That's the part that gets me. If they come in illegally, they can just have a baby and that baby's automatically a citizen. We're the only country in the world that does that. That is silly. I know the framers had never had that in mind. They had it in mind to protect slaves, former slaves that were now considered citizens, and to protect the children of legal immigrants that were coming over. I don't think they meant that anybody could just come to this country and have a baby and that baby is now a citizen.
Yeah, and remember, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment, 14th, 15th, no, it is 13th, 14th, and 16th. 13th was the slavery, 14th was, okay, yeah, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were the post-Civil War amendments, and the section that everybody's hanging their hat on is Section 1 of the 14th Amendment. Quote, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction equal protections of the law. Okay, but the context in this, it's like Tracy said, this was done post-Civil War after the freeing of the slaves. I mean, it is crazy to assume,
it says right there, naturalized citizen. An illegal immigrant is not a naturalized citizen.
All persons born or naturalized. Exactly. So, yeah, this one's going to the Supreme Court, folks. And I have no doubt about this.
If there's actual constitutionalists on the court, Trump should win.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is going to be an interesting test because, you're probably going to have 𝗙𝗂, Thomas, and Alito who will side with the Trump administration. Obviously, the 3 liberals won't. The question becomes, if there's going to be 2 more votes to be had to back up Trump on this executive order, where do they come from?
Roberts and Barrett.
Yeah, again, this is where
Barrett
putting
disappointed me in her last thing.
Well,
but hopefully she's at least this, which is so blatantly constitutional.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you, but this one's going to be this is where, many people have said Kavanaugh being on the court, Trump sort of had to take Kavanaugh or else Kennedy wasn't going to retire.
Mm-hmm.
Justice Anthony Kennedy, I should say. He had a free choice when it came to Barrett, and unfortunately, he went with Barrett, and it's like, oh man, on certain decisions, this one's coming back to bite him.
Yeah.
So we'll see, but yeah, this one's going to go up to the Supreme Court before it's all said and done.
But at least it's a 14-day halt, so we'll see what comes up. Hopefully, a lower court might, and the next higher court might see that, hey, that's not what the framers meant. So there you go.
Yeah. So, but yeah, as it stands right now, the executive order is on hold. As the article said, pending a 14-day time frame to allow the lawyers to draft more briefs and argue this before they did it out in the Ninth Circuit.
Well, Trump even said it when he signed it, that he knew this was going to face serious challenges and it would be decided in the courts. But the border is closed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the only people this affects are people that are already here now. And maybe, as bad as it sounds, some of those might be in a deportation hold camp when the babies are born.
We shall see.
I know I sound like a terrible person, but we're the only country. I can't go. Pregnant me could not go over to UK and have a baby, or over to up to Canada and have a baby, or even down to Mexico and have a baby, and that baby be a citizen.
Yep.
It just doesn't. We're the only country that does this.
Yeah. Oh, it's the only country in the world. Nobody else, to the best of my knowledge, does this. And it goes back to the great question, and laying aside the question of children born in the United States, because I was thinking about this driving home tonight. A sovereign nation has the right to determine who should and should not be allowed inside its border, and who should and should not be allowed to become a citizen of its country. Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, we are the melting pot of the world. We are the lamp beside the golden door, to borrow a line from the new Colossus of the Statue of Liberty. But that doesn't mean that we can and cannot, or should not, turn off the immigration spigot. There have been whole periods where we've gone decades and never let new immigrants into this country. I mean, most recent example that I can think of historically was shortly after World War I. Yeah. We just turned it off, and we didn't open it back up until it
was maybe after World War II. I mean, we wouldn't even take refugees from the Holocaust. I mean, that is a shameful thing, but we wouldn't take it. But I understand the reason why they didn't want to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You didn't know who was a Nazi sympathizer and who wasn't coming in.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, my dear.
All right. Well, my next is going to be 23 patriots were recently released because they exercised their freedom of speech over the years that Biden was in power by peacefully protesting outside abortion clinics or doctors' offices that perform abortions. They were obeying the law, staying on public property, praying and sitting and holding signs outside places that do abortions. And as a result, the DOJ terrorized them, arrested them, and many of them have been sitting in jail, much like the J6ers. And today, Donald Trump pardoned all 23 of them due to gross violation of their civil rights. And let's check this out.
Next, we have a set of pardons for peaceful pro-life protesters who were prosecuted by the Biden administration for exercising their First Amendment rights.
Do you know how many?
I believe it's 23, sir.
23 people were prosecuted. They should not have been prosecuted. Many of them are elderly people. They should not have been prosecuted. This is a great honor to sign this.
He's going to go through a lot of those pens before it's all said and done.
They'll be very.
Yeah. Somewhere in Delaware, if Joe Biden is watching the television, he's probably tearing his hair out. But there's nothing he can do about it. Merrick Garland is tearing his hair out.
He's watching. He's watching Matlock. He's okay.
And eating ice cream. Yeah.
But the weird thing is so far in this second term, Trump has signed 1,523 pardons. During his first administration, he pardoned right at, I want to say 500 and something.
Yep.
He is still about 8 times less than Biden signed in one term.
Yes.
Biden signed something like 8,000. He's actually probably still less than Obama.
Yeah, I'd have to hang on a minute.
Let's see if I can find that. Pardons.
Yeah, I'm looking for it too. Number of pardons by president. Okay, here we go.
Okay, send it to me and I'll share it.
Yeah, I did this straight off of Google, so hang on a second.
Sorry.
There we go. I just sent to you in private chat. But yeah, I mean, it's not even close. It is not even close. I mean,
I saw the numbers yesterday. Yeah, he's still slightly. He's probably he's still less than Barack Obama, way less than Joe Biden. I think the least amount, of course, was George Bush. We'll see if can everybody still see. I'm going to Wikipedia.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, Andrew Jackson had quite a few. James Monroe had quite a few.
William Henry Harrison. Goose egg. Abraham Lincoln, 343.
Now, Andrew Johnson. Confederacy, yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Still less than Biden. Still less than Biden.
Yeah. And Biden's were given for the most specious of reasons.
Right. And at least S. Grant was still pardoned Confederates too, so that makes sense. Yeah. Let's see. Grover Cleveland. Woodrow Wilson, 2480. Calvin Coolidge, Herbert Hoover, Franklin Roosevelt.
Yeah, but that's over like a 12-year.
I'm sure that had something to do with World War II.
Like a 12-year period, so I can kind of understand that one.
12 years or 10 years.
Yeah,
exactly. Truman, Dwight Eisenhower, JFK, 575. Jimmy Carter, 566. Ronald Reagan, 406. Yeah, Biden.
Incredible.
Pardoned more than Abraham Lincoln.
Absolutely incredible.
And Stephen, excuse me. Yeah. But they're saying that a lot of that was pardoned for marijuana possession. I get it, but still.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just absurd. Just absurd.
And Trump would have pardoned those same people, let's be honest. But,
yeah, probably so. But the pardons that Trump is engaging in now are of way more consequence. So it is, this is truly, I'm not saying the scales of justice are totally balanced out yet or treating all people equally yet, but this is a good start. I'm sorry. When people walk into the Capitol, they are not armed. They committed no violence. They destroyed no property. They just simply walked around.
Did they finally get the last of them out of the DC jail? I know the marshals had to go in twice.
I'm not totally sure. I know they were still working on it, but I haven't had any updates recently. But the one sentence that still blows my mind to this day, and I did a video about this a while back, 70-something-year-old grandmother walks into the Capitol for 10 minutes, is not armed, commits no violence, destroys no property, walks back out, stands where she originally was before she walked in, and holds a prayer service with several other people. They sentenced her to 18 months in jail. The woman had no prior record, had never been found guilty of any crimes, hadn't even been charged with a crime.
Mm-hmm.
But for 10 minutes of walking into the Capitol building, she was sent up the river for 18 months. As a matter of fact, she had to report to jail back in August, about 2 months before the election.
Exactly.
And now she's pardoned, thank God. As with
It's
so many other people.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing what they put some of those people through. The pro-lifers, them, just doing basic, it was not there were some violent, and even the violent ones, I think commuted their sentences.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that were violent, I guess ones that broke windows and stuff, but no one was violent in that they were attacking police officers. I think there was one or two, but then again, there's also the realization that some of them might have been federal plants.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and it just, and I agree with Robert. The Fauci pardon is in and of itself criminal. I don't disagree with that at all.
Oh, I agree. Well, based on what he did all the way back with the AIDS epidemic, his hand in that, and then COVID, he should at least be investigated. And I really believe that some parameters need to be put around the presidential pardon. At the very least, you have to be accused, charged, or convicted of a crime to get a pardon. You can't go in and do a blanket pardon of your family just because you're afraid they're going to prosecute you.
Well, the only other time in history where that was done, and the most famous historical example, was Gerald Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon.
Right.
But that was a very unique circumstance. Mm-hmm. But I agree with you. I mean, we need to have a serious reexamination of under the circumstances of which you give a pardon, because I'm like you. To give a pardon to someone who's never even been charged with a crime, lay aside whether the person's guilty or not. For the rest of their lives, you are hanging a cloud of suspicion over that person, because everyone's going to look at them and go, what did you do? Even if they didn't do anything, you have ruined that person's reputation. Now, granted, it's an offer of pardon and an acceptance thereof. You can always refuse to accept the pardon, but even just the offer to me is like, man, don't even offer me that thing. I don't want it. It's like, Adam Schiff. Believe me, there's a lot of reasons why Adam Schiff ought to be viewed suspiciously. But the fact that Biden gave him a pardon for his part in the J6 committee forever is going to taint that man. And people are going to look at him and go, what'd you do?
I know that bygones. I think Trump is bygones or bygones. We're just going to move forward and do what's best for the country. And I'm glad. But part of me would just like to see them brought into Congress and forced to speak as to why they accepted a pardon. What crimes do they think they have committed that led them to accept a pardon? I mean, you can kind of get the truth out of them without punishing them.
Well,
I would like it sent to one of the states. I really would.
Well, here's the other thing too. With the acceptance of the pardon, if you bring them into Congress, they can't plead Fifth Amendment. Because, at that point it's like, well, I'm pardoned. Well, okay, you have a pardon. Well, I plead the Fifth. Well, you can't do that. Whatever actions you engage in are covered. Therefore, a plea of Fifth Amendment doesn't apply here. So if you're gonna investigate them, now's the time to do it. Issue a subpoena and haul them in front of the Congress. You got nothing to lose now.
Exactly. I really think it ought to happen. There ought to be a special committee to do just that.
Well, and something else and this is one of my major hopes. We have got to start putting laws and systems in place that prevent things from happening that were allowed to happen. Because if we just, pardon everybody and everybody gets mad about the pardon, but we don't, at least dig down to the root to prevent certain things from happening again, you're going to have these same kind of abuses and you're going to have these same kind of pardons somewhere down the road. There has got to be systemic change to the way we govern at the federal level, or all of this outrage is a waste.
Yeah.
Now,
you've
will
got
it
to
happen?
do that.
No
You've
idea.
got to limit the power of the pardon
Oh, I agree.
to at least being charged with or convicted of a crime. I don't think that's asking too much.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. I don't disagree with that at all. So
And
we'll see
I
what
really want
happens.
to see these people in front of some sort of committee or even prosecuted at the state level. I want to
Mhm.
see them have to answer for what they did, because they
Well-
were participating in lawfare. They used 1,500 American citizens to stick pins in Trump. Essentially, they knew that wasn't an insurrection. It was a protest. Protest on government grounds, which incidentally is where the Constitution tells us we need to protest.
Mhm.
If you want to prosecute the ones where there was some sort of physical altercation, okay, fine, give them a fair trial. But the other, 1,490 people should never have been prosecuted. If you're going to do them, you got to go back and grab the BLM Antifa people too from the previous summer, because that
Yeah.
was, if that's an insurrection, then that was surely an insurrection. And how about here in Tennessee, the the Congress people here that interrupted a state session, the Democratic Congress people that, basically caused a riot in our state capitol. They weren't prosecuted for an insurrection,
Exactly.
but yet the J6ers were.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sorry. I'm going to say something that people are going to, well, let me just say it and I'll explain why I'm getting there. Somebody needs to be punished. Okay. I mean, and you could apply that statement to any number of situations. The response to COVID, the lockdowns, the lying about the scientific data, the manipulation of systems to gain out, economic gain for individuals, in spite of the fact that, in doing so, millions of people got hurt. I mean, the J6 committee, and the reason I'm saying it, it's not so much for retribution. Oh, well, you want to see Trump's enemies punished. No, I want to see justice. I want to see confidence in the system restored. If these people are allowed to get away with the things that they have done,
Yeah.
okay, and not be proven guilty in a court of law and not face some kind of punishment, then people are going to lose confidence in the system, and you will have more lawlessness with the passing of time, because people are going to lose faith in the whole system, and they'll say, why should I worry about it? They didn't punish them. Why are they going to punish me?
Right. If there are retribution, then people will think twice about using the law to go after their opponents. Number one.
Exactly.
Number two, it will encourage equal treatment under the law, because the whole thing about COVID, it was a never before encountered thing. Not since, I think, the Spanish flu epidemic in 1920 or 1918. That had we seen this, and there was a war going on then, so you really couldn't do that. But with us, they applied the law purely politically. Small businesses had to shut down, but large businesses, and I'm not just saying like Walmart and places where you get groceries, but places like Home Depot, places like GameStop, places like Best Buy that were not necessities were allowed to remain open as essential. Whereas your local hardware store, your local electronics store, your local grocery store had to, maybe not your local grocery store, they were forced to close. Whereas the big boxes were allowed to stay open. That's another symptom of our thing, is that we have a capitalistic oligarchy that we need to break. So you destroyed small and medium-sized businesses and allowed the larger ones to stay open and make record profits. RV dealerships were allowed to, RV dealerships, and I know because I work in the automotive industry, RV dealerships made record profits during the pandemic because people just wanted to get out of their house. How is that essential? Unless you're some sort of traveling medical person, how is that essential? But yet, my local farmer's market had to shut down. How is that? It's just that.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. And
And then
It is
the
my
vaccine, I'm not against vaccines as long as
nope.
they're properly tested.
Mm-hmm.
That was issue number one. I took it because I had a lot of comorbidities,
Sure.
so I took it. But I also took Moderna. My mother-in-law, who is a medical professional, told me she's in medical research. She said, stay away from Pfizer, stay away from Johnson & Johnson, take the Moderna. So I took that one. But the whole fact is it wasn't properly tested. I understand the reason why. And also, not until after Trump left office, it was available if you'd like it during the 6 or 8 months that Trump was still in power during the pandemic. They like to blame it on him, but he was in power for less than a year underneath the pandemic, and he got the vaccine done. That in itself was remarkable. And then and then when Biden took over, suddenly it became mandatory, and that's where I have a problem.
Yeah.
You shouldn't tell the American people you have to put some untested drug in your body, and that's what Fauci needs to go down for. Plus the fact that I think it was leaked from a Chinese factory, a Chinese lab, and they knew about it and they didn't say anything about it. He needs to go down for that.
Oh yeah, and the part about Fauci's pardon that makes everybody very suspicious. It goes back to 2014.
What the hell was he doing in 2014?
Well, I might be able to answer part of that question, because you'll remember in the second part of the Obama administration is when Obama put a ban on gain-of-function research in the United States. Fauci very vocally disagreed with Obama's policy. Well, all of a sudden, you have documentation from various people showing where all of a sudden monies from certain groups, research projects start going overseas. You know, this is one of the suspicions that people have about the Ukraine war. Are there any biolabs in Ukraine that the U.S. has funded over the years? And if so, what the heck have they been studying? I mean, there have been people who have been absolute bloodhounds on this question who can track through documentation monies that went through Fauci's hands to Peter Daszak to various groups that they were affiliated with, where monies wind up going into certain labs overseas doing just that, gain-of-function research. So we weren't doing it on U.S. soil, but we were still doing it. And if Fauci had a hand in it, then yeah, that needs to be investigated. And if it's found out that he funneled U.S. tax dollars to make this happen, yeah, he ought to be punished for it. I'm sorry.
Yep, absolutely. And that I'm sure you can punish that at the state level, or at least haul him in and make him sweat before Congress.
Yeah, because like I said, Fifth Amendment protection is waived now. He has a pardon. So there's not like he can say, well, I can't talk about that on the advice of counsel. No, you've waived that with the acceptance of the pardon.
Yep.
So start squawking, parrot.
Exactly.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, I'll turn it over to you for your next topic.
Well,
somehow
as we said,
from pro-lifers into that, we've got rabbit hole syndrome tonight, and
I'm here for it. It is all, we are like Alice in Wonderland. It's like, ooh, let's go through the mirror. And you could literally call me the Mad Hatter. Anyway, Donald Trump has been a lot of things over the years, but he's never been accused of letting grass grow under his feet. And while we were all getting up to our first cup of coffee this morning, Donald Trump was overseas putting the World Economic Forum at Davos on notice that there is a new sheriff in town, or maybe it's better to say daddy's home. I just shot Tracy a couple of clips. The first one is a real good one. I've got a couple of clips here of Trump's speech to the World Economic Forum at Davos. And believe me, he basically set everybody on notice, to borrow a line from an old country song, we're not going to do this anymore. So I will, as soon as this thing pulls up, I will step out the way and let you guys hear it from the man himself. So with that, check this out.
Let's do it. Did he speak via Zoom, or did he speak?
No, he was there.
Or did he go there?
He was there.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's do it.
Department of Government Efficiency. I terminated the ridiculous and incredibly wasteful Green New Deal. I call it the Green New Scam. Withdrew from the one-sided Paris Climate Accord and ended the insane and costly electric vehicle mandate. We're going to let people buy the car they want to buy. I declared a national energy emergency, and that's so important, national energy emergency to unlock the liquid gold under our feet and pave the way for rapid approvals of new energy infrastructure. The United States has the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth, and we're going to use it. Not only will this reduce the cost of virtually all goods and services, it'll make the United States a manufacturing superpower and the world capital of artificial intelligence and crypto. Foreign aid freeze, and I created the new Department of Government Efficiency. I terminated the ridiculous and incredible.
Yeah, now I want to say a couple things before we go to that next clip. You might ask yourself, why is Donald Trump talking about ending the new Green Deal? Why is he talking about pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord? Why is he talking about the things he's talking about? Well, when it comes to the World Economic Forum, these things are big to-do items. These are things they want to see done. And Trump's basically sending the message, not anymore. You know, and this goes back to something that people said during the campaign. If Trump wins this thing, he has nothing left to lose. You're going to get full-on Trumpism. You're going to get full-on populism. And he's serving notice to the powers that be, the Klaus Schwabs, the Emmanuel Macrons, the Olaf Scholz of Germany, etc. And yeah, exactly. Keir Starmer of Great Britain, you know, the members of the Economic Union. Boys, this is done. This is done. Exactly. We're not doing this anymore.
And he's not the only one. There's several world leaders that are sticking it to him. Argentina, Poland, Italy. Their hold is crumbling. And from what I understand, they're pretty much just like, they've almost given up. They're just like, at least for the next 4 to 8 years, we've lost it. We've lost control.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they even admit as much. And like I say, Trump was, from what the clips I've seen of the speech, Trump was polite but pointed.
Yeah.
He's getting his message across. Matter of fact, as you're pulling up that second clip, he gets to send a message to someone who normally doesn't have someone speak very frankly to him. So there's an exchange between Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan and President Trump, where there's a panel and they're asking questions back and forth to Trump. And this is a pretty good exchange because you got to hear this. Trump is in full Trump mode in this one. So when you're ready, Tracy, just turn it loose.
And by the way, speaking of you, and you've done a fantastic job, but I hope you start opening your bank to conservatives, because many conservatives complain that the banks are not allowing them to do business within the bank. And that included a place called Bank of America. They don't take conservative business. And I don't know if the regulators mandated that because of Biden or what, but you and Jamie and everybody, I hope you're going to open your banks to conservatives, because what you're doing is wrong.
Boom.
Mr. President, I'll say that your friend Gianni said hello, told me to tell you hello, and we look forward to sponsoring the World Cup when it comes both this summer for the club and next year. So thank you for getting that for the United States.
And
yeah,
I mean, well, I hope you open
sir,
up.
yes, sir, yes, sir.
Yep, I hope you open up your bank, let conservatives do business. It's like, ooh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just stuff like that. Oh, Zippy.
I got my first ever super chat. Thank you. It's my first ever super chat.
What?
The frozen regs will let car makers make cars again, not overpriced land yachts. I agree. I hope that they just let the free market dictate what automakers make, whether that is a old gas-powered car with, 3 cylinders or 8 cylinders versus a hybrid versus an electric. Whatever the people want to drive should be what companies make.
Freedom under the law, not freedom from it. And what do I mean by freedom from it? There's a mentality that says, no, we establish laws and you're going to obey them. You now live under our rule. No, we want freedom within the law. We want laws that allow us to maximize our freedom so that we may pursue the interests that allow us to achieve life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's the difference. I mean, what the American people voted for in large part in November was individual liberty and freedom versus supposed benevolent despotism. Joe Biden and the Democrat Party today represent what I call supposedly benevolent despotism. And what do I mean by that? Basically, what it is if, look, we'll make you happy, we'll keep you safe, but you've got to give up some of your money and your power and your freedom, and we promise we'll make you safe. Now, we might have to enact some things that kind of rough. We might be viewed as a bit despotic, but we'll be benevolent despots. That's benevolent despotism. Give us your money, your power, your freedom, and we will keep you safe, but we might be viewed a little bit rough doing it. Whereas on the other side, we're like, not just no, hell no, we're Americans. We're granted by God certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. We want you to get out of the way so that we may maximize our freedom. And in doing so, we will create a prosperity, not just for ourselves, but for everybody around us. That's it.
I agree. And Tiny Tesla, I don't know why you couldn't. I'll check. Hopefully they didn't strike it down because of some of the stuff that I said earlier, but I'll figure that out. And welcome M169. Yes, there is a market for EV. With all of this hubbub about EVs, people forgot about the fact that we had tons of hybrids. While they were out there worrying about EVs, the Japanese have already perfected hybrids. Cars that get 500 miles per gallon.
Jeez.
That is a 2013 Prius gets 450 miles to a gallon, and they have certainly improved them since then. Wow. So, yeah, I think hybrids are that nice little middle ground where we should have stayed instead of trying to go fully electric. Yeah. And also the American market had pretty much perfected the 4 to 6 cylinder gas cars that got between 35 and 50 miles per gallon.
Yep. And it would have worked perfectly if they just would have left. If the government would have got out of it, and as opposed to mandating you shall have an electric car and you'll be happy about it. No, just let us figure out what works and we'll create a market for it.
There's a lot of combustion technology out there that could really lower the amount of gas that has to be used. And people are so onto cars.
Yeah.
That is not the main use of petroleum. Everything that we touch pretty much contains petroleum, from plastics to paper to even, sadly, some of the food we eat uses petroleum products. So when you talk about banning fossil fuels, you're talking about banning everything that we've come to know in modern life, not just gas-powered cars. People get all up in it's just cars. No, that is a small percentage of where petroleum is used. It's used in things that power other things. And then the next thing, they're coming after beef. Have you noticed that they're coming after beef, sheep, lamb, anything that's, meat-based? That's another thing. They want you totally, the World Economic Forum wants you totally dependent on them for what you're allowed to eat. They want to push a vegan and vegetarian diet, which, have you noticed, the main thing that vegans and vegetarians do well is trying to imitate meat. And if you've ever looked at a package of veggie burgers, the ingredients list is that long. Yeah. I would much rather have just a burger that just contains beef.
When I had a local butcher shop that was about walking distance from my house, it would be nothing for me to go over there and watch the owner, who was a trained butcher, take a giant, what looked like a machete, rip off a slab of something. And if I wanted a steak, he could fix one up for me, and I walk out with it and go put it on my grill. That's real food. That is real food.
Well, EVs also cost a ton to repair. I'm talking about if you want something that's a little more efficient, hybrid is the way to go. When those lithium batteries run down, that's a huge cost. It's as much as the transmission in a gas-powered car to replace, sometimes more.
Absolutely. Oh, and don't look now, but you also got your second super chat.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
I was ranting, and I didn't see it. Robert Lowry, thank you so much, buddy. Happy belated birthday.
Happy birthday indeed, sir. Happy birthday indeed.
Another fellow Gen Xer. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh my goodness. All us Gen Xers all gathered in the same place. Oh my goodness. And thank you all I'm sure thank you all very much for your super chats. Greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated indeed.
And I misspoke on the Prius. It's not 500 miles to a gallon. It's 500 gallons, 500 miles on a full tank, and that was 2013.
Wow.
I would imagine it's probably more now. It was actually closer to about 60 miles per gallon.
Jeez. 60 miles per gallon. Good God. Man, what I could do with that.
I still would love to have a Prius. I really would. As much as I love our big old Ram truck, if I got to pick the car, it would be a nice used Prius. I think they're great.
I hear you.
Toyota could use the business, from what I understand. They're not doing so well.
Yeah, there's a lot of places could use the business right now. Absolutely, that'd be the case.
All right, let's see what I have next. I'm not going to do anything like a video on this, just because everybody knows what happened. But today, Trump signed another executive order that declassified, get this, the JFK files, the Warren Report, the RFK files, and the Martin Luther King MLK files. We now have the right, once it's released and where I can figure out how to get it, we have the right to read what the federal commission said about all three of those assassinations. Declassified, all of it.
Yep. Yeah. And to follow up on that, because I've got a link here, and I'll drop it in private chat. This is from the Post Millennial, and it's actually got the language of the executive order. And anyway, I just shot it to you in private chat. Basically, and this goes to Section 2 of the order, declassification disclosure. Within 15 days of the date of this order, the Director of National Intelligence and the Attorney General shall, in coordination with the assistance of the President for National Security and the Council of the President, present a plan to the President for the full and complete release of records relating to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Within 45 days from the date of this order, again, same individuals involved will present a plan to the President, review the records related to the assassinations of Senator Robert Kennedy and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and present a plan to the President for a full and complete release of these records. Now, with the fact that 𝗙𝘂 is not in as director of DNI at this point,
45 days, we'll know where we can get them.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and Trump's not going to let this thing linger out. It's like, oh well, no, you're not going to let this get slow walked. This one's going to get out there quick.
Yeah,
and it's long overdue. It's long overdue.
And the thing of it is, if it does reveal that the federal government had some of this done or allowed some of this to be done, even though a lot of those people are long dead, it's going to come down on the agencies. It's just going to give the 𝗥𝗶𝗄𝗍 and the new head of the CIA, I cannot remember his name.
John Ratcliffe,
John Radcliffe, to come down on those agencies hardcore.
Yeah. And that's
probably part of Trump's plan. I think Trump's probably knows what's in those files. I think he's the type of person that would have read them or had somebody on his staff read them and then, and summarize it for him. But I think he knows what's in them.
Funny you should say that, because in my memory, and I could be mistaking who it was, but I think it was Judge Andrew Napolitano had a conversation with someone one time, and the person asked Napolitano, okay, you're friends with Trump. He's read the JFK files. Why hasn't he released them? He said, funny you should ask me that. He said, I had the same conversation with Trump. And Trump basically said, man, there's some stuff in there that if I turn it loose, he said it would be bad. Now, what exactly he meant by that, I don't know. But, and maybe he was just posturing at the time, trying to defend a decision like, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? I don't know. No, Trump's adamant now. He's like, no, we're releasing everything. We're going to let the public know.
Lose.
Yeah.
He was trying to keep the chaos down in his first term. He has nothing to lose now.
Oh, yeah.
And he wants the ammunition to disassemble some of these government agencies. And I think this is probably going to be some ammunition.
Yeah, because I have a bad feeling we're going to find out. I mean, look, it's widely known or strongly suspected that the CIA had some kind of hand in the President Kennedy's assassination.
Both of them, RFK and JFK.
Yeah, both of them. And here's my question too. If it's found out that the CIA had a hand in the assassination of, let's say, Robert Kennedy, Sirhan is still alive. Mm-hmm. He's still in prison.
Yeah. I said he should be pardoned. He needs to be subpoenaed and forced to tell the freaking truth.
Yeah. And RFK Jr. has met with Sirhan and has made the statement. Mm-hmm. I don't think he did it. Mm-hmm. He said, I do not think that the man did it.
Yeah.
So
totally agree. And
does this mean that Sirhan is released and given a full pardon? I don't know. Maybe
that's
not.
Why Lee Harvey Oswald was executed in front of millions.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me Jack Ruby didn't have something to do with it. There's a few things in life that I will put on my tinfoil hat. The JFK, I don't know as much about the RFK and the MLK, but JFK, I will put on my tinfoil hat.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I have little to no doubt because, here's the thing. John Hinckley Jr. has been released from prison. Yeah. For shooting Reagan.
Now I think was just a lone crazy wolf. I'll admit that. I think that was a lone crazy wolf, but my point is this. We released John Hinckley Jr. for less circumstance or reasons than we would have if we find out that Sirhan was innocent of what it is that he is in jail for. Up in Connecticut, RFK Jr. testified at Sirhan's parole hearing, for heaven's sake. That's how serious he thought, okay, I don't think this guy did it, and I'm willing to go testify to try to get him out of jail. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think RFK, this is for him. This is for him.
Absolutely. Well, and he's had the suspicion for years that the CIA was involved in the assassination of his uncle and his father.
We know that the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover had everything to do with making the Black Panthers into the radical group that they are. Mm-hmm. They started out as a public service group helping African American communities, and we're doing a lot of good work.
Yep.
He's the one that not only helped turn them into radicals by putting plants in the organization, he also demonized them to the press. He had a group that was using Black Panther money to feed breakfast to inner city school children outside of school hours. He had them raided and arrested. The government has done some terrible things to people over the years.
Yeah. Well, and let's not forget either that it was under J. Edgar Hoover's FBI that wiretaps were placed on Martin Luther King Jr. That's widely known.
They saw both him and Malcolm X. I wish we knew more about Malcolm X assassination, but Malcolm X and MLK, I think, were considered enemies of the state, and I think they took them out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would not be surprised at all if we start finding this out. And as you say, most of the people involved in those incidents are dead and gone. There might be just a handful of them left, but going after them would not be the point. The pressure would be brought to bear upon these institutions, much like it was in the 1970s post-Watergate, when you had the Church Commission leading efforts to clean up the CIA and other clandestine agencies involved with the United States government.
Yep, absolutely, Robert.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Hoover, Atlanta, Hoover was one very sketchy dude.
And from what I understand, he was also a cross-dresser, which probably means he was a autogonophile. So he's one of these crazy, not real trans people, these transposers that we see running around.
And one other thing about J. Edgar Hoover, he had wonderful fashion sense, ladies and gentlemen. Wonderful fashion sense.
Most gay men do.
But yeah, I mean, I am dying. I mean, have I deep dived into all three of these subjects, all three of these assassinations? No, but I'm dying to have some closure on this because there's questions. My mom was alive. My sister was alive when these things happened. I'll never forget years ago. It was a Saturday night. We were at my mom and dad's house, my sister and I, and we were watching a special on CBS talking about the year 1968. It was, it's probably 20 years out. It's probably the late 80s. It was like probably 1988, somewhere in there. And in that hour-long or 2-hour-long special, they CBS touched on the assassinations of RFK Jr. and RFK Sr. and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And at one point when they went to commercial, I looked at my sister and I said, "You were alive then. I mean, you were." Let's see, Gina graduated 74. So she probably would have been 10, 11, or 12, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. I said, "You were alive then. What did you think was going?" She's like, "We thought the world was coming to an end. Everything was happening so fast." I mean, in May, Bobby Kennedy gets killed. A 3 months later, Martin Luther King Jr. gets killed. We didn't know what to think.
They were all dangerous to the establishment.
Mm-hmm.
Much like as was Malcolm X, as is Trump. Hence the fact somebody's tried to shoot him twice.
Yeah, and thank God he now has complete full Secret Service protection. But I don't discount the possibility someone's going to try it again somewhere down the line.
They just got to keep him safe. And I do like his pick. Even though it's not Dan Bongino, I do like his pick for the head of his security detail, the one that's been like protecting him since the beginning. I do like his pick for being head of the Secret Service. I think he'll do a good job.
Yeah, but to me, there needs to be closure. There needs to be final answers, especially for people who lived through that era and are always going to wonder, do we really know what happened? Well, now we're going to maybe have the chance to find out.
Yep. Yeah. And I think it's going to set some agencies on fire.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. Especially if you have the right kind of leadership at the head of those agencies that want to reform them anyway, but now they're going to be given the impetus to really do it because the public outcry, depending upon what's in the files, okay, depending on what comes out in those files, they will have the impetus to really go in and clean house, especially Kash Patel. I mean, Radcliffe will see. Kash Patel absolutely wants to reform the FBI.
Yeah.
So with the right encouragement, in other words, public reaction to what's in the files.
It should have been done a long time ago. Not only the assassinations that we've just talked about, but what they did to the Black Panthers, what they did at Ruby Ridge, even though they did win a lawsuit there. Waco.
Yeah.
So much. I believe there's more to Oklahoma City than we're being told.
Absolutely.
Probably more to 9/11 than we're being told.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, let's crossing our fingers. Let's hope this gets done fast. Let's get this stuff out here. Let's get it out in the open and let's finally have a conversation about it.
I don't know about Nixon's vindication. I think he really did participate in that cover up, but I don't know necessarily that he had a part in the theft. I think he did help cover it up though.
Yeah, true. We'll see. We will see.
And with that, my friend, I think with it being as late as it is, we'll go ahead and bring it into the station, if that's okay.
Perfectly fine by me.
All right, everyone. Please find us on social media. You'll see me here on YouTube and over on X. Brian, tell everybody what you got going on, where to find you, and what some of your upcoming stuff is.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at @TheFrontPorchC1. You can find me on YouTube at Talking on the Front Porch. That's the name of my channel. You can find me on Rumble at The Front Porch Conservative. I've got some videos coming up. I'll be doing a live stream this Saturday morning, 10:30 a.m. called Front Porch Brunch. Please come check it out. Also, I've got videos, and I got an interview next Thursday with the High Harlot, Mike Harlow. He's coming back by for a visit. So stop on by, because you know Mike. God, never ask Mike Harlow what he really thinks, because God help you if you're not ready to hear the answer. He will tell you, and he'll give you more than you ever asked for in the question. So absolutely, stop on by next Thursday night at 7:30. Mikey and I are going to catch up and shoot the breeze and see if we can't solve all the world's problems. So love you guys, and Tracy, as always, thank you for having me on your channel. I absolutely love it.
Absolutely. Thank you always for being on. And as for me, I have videos. As you know, on my channel, I do Gen X nostalgia, I do true crime, and I do fantasy and horror. And coming up, I have another video on Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, dropping. It is, for those of you that know, it is my interpretation of what would happen had Rhaegar Targaryen defeated Robert Baratheon in Robert's Rebellion. So I've written a whole thing there, which will be dropping. I have my recut, unedited episode on the dark web and Silk Road. I have a conversation with 𝗟𝗫_𝗀𝗃 coming up on the Matrix, and my video on the good company of California that helped bring about some of California's water problems. So look out for all that, as well as Wednesday night newsroom. Next week it'll be over on Brian's channels. And until then, we will see you soon. Gen X.